Association moderate the Q&A. And I think I'm going to introduce the president, Matthew Katz. He's been an active and very involved and dedicated community resident for, well, he's been living here for 25 years? 23 years. Be what you're counting. And he has had a couple of different reigns as president of the association, where he's certainly worked very hard to make sure that all of the residents' voices are heard and the quality of life here is protected, and has been a great partner on this project. So Matthew, come on.
Somebody will be coming around to take more questions, and we'll try to do justice to them all. Oh, I'm sorry. Someone will be coming around to take your questions. And good evening, neighbors, and good evening, friends. I'm so glad that so many people came out. This is exciting stuff. Matter of fact, 3 weeks ago, my wife Sherry and I were in New Orleans, and of course I was wearing my tram hat. And I was amazed at the number of people who stopped me to ask about Roosevelt Island and the Cornell project. This is not local stuff. This is countrywide. People are excited. People are curious to know what's going on here. You know, about a few years ago, many of us collected at the Good Shepherd Center to hear a town meeting in which it was announced that Goldwater Hospital would be closing by 2014. And I know what was going through my mind at the time was, what's going to happen to the resident patients there, and what's going to take its place? That's an enormous piece of real estate. It's 10 acres. We've seen all kinds of ideas presented for various pieces of siting on Roosevelt Island. Was it going to be more luxury housing? Well, we know that getting folks to their offices in Manhattan now on public transportation is about at its peak, and what was then going to happen? And we were concerned about that, and then we realized that with this kind of opportunity, staff, faculty, students would be living here and mitigating the problem. We also thought about one of the ideas that had been 10 years ago, 2 32-story towers at the site of the Four Freedoms Park now. It was going to be a hotel. God only knows how cars were going to get down our little Main Street, which is built on sand. That went away, but was this something that was being considered for the old Goldwater site? Or would it be a big box kind of store with parking lots there? Nobody knew. I mean, the potential for things that we couldn't even imagine were concerning, frightening, actually. And then the city announced that what they had in mind was a graduate engineering facility. And a whole lot of us went, of course, what an idea. This is a community that was built on the basis of innovation. We are a planned community. And to attract, to welcome an academic organization in which innovation is their product just seemed like such a wonderful combination. It's the kind of town-gown synergy that I don't think exists anywhere else. We've heard an enormous amount of information this evening, but the primary purpose of this evening is to hear from us, you, the community. We want to hear your questions, we want to hear your fears, and we want to hear your ideas for things that maybe nobody's thought of yet. So I'm going to try to do justice to these questions. First things first. And I'm going to take a point of personal privilege to ask a question that has evolved out of a group that didn't have a name until Monday. And I'm going to ask the Silicon City Coalition to stand up. The question comes from them, and here it is. The Roosevelt Island Residents Association, in connection with other island organizations, as well as the Coalition for Queens and Upper East Side interests, has formed the Silicon City Coalition To work with Cornell Technion as the project develops, we offer the following question. Will Cornell negotiate with this community benefit association representing stakeholders from the entire region?
Just that this lady is telling me whether she can hear me or not. You can hear me, right? Okay. Keep saying nice things to me, that's wonderful. So the answer is yes. Yes, we will. But in all these questions, I want to be totally honest. Our tradition as a public mandate institution is that we'll talk to anybody and listen to anybody. I know that you are not presenting yourselves as an exclusive conversation, that if other members of the community wanted to have our ear and want to ask us questions and challenge us, that they can do that directly as individuals. So if I'm misunderstanding that, please correct me. But we will interact with anyone, but we want to be able, because we're a public entity in that sense, publicly mandated entity, we want to be able to hear from and to respond to individual citizens, individual neighbors. But of course, if there's an organization that you have developed that represents a lot of the thinking, we will interact with it, starting with the two leaders of the campus. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Bear with me, I'm seeing these questions for the first time myself. As a codicil to that first question, this from Frank Ferrance, have you considered working with community interests outside of the Silicon Island / City coalition? I don't think that a CBA is the right contract vehicle for providing services to the neighborhood. I think perhaps that's been answered, that these folks are going to speak to anybody and everybody, and that's what I expected them to say. Please.
And just to add one thing, there is a public review process that this entire project is going to go through that will include input from the community board, from the borough board, from the city planning commission, and also from the city council. And our expectation is that there will be a large number of benefits to the community that will come out of this process, and we feel that the best way to ensure that those benefits are enshrined in an enforceable document is to do it through that process, working through the elected officials and working through the formal process. And so we are looking forward to engaging with everyone through that process, and we certainly expect to get a significant amount of input as the process proceeds.
This question from Lydia Tang. What kind of preferential treatment can you give to residents on Roosevelt Island who are seeking faculty / staff employment opportunities?
So we're going to follow the normal human resource policies and employment policies that we always do. We're going to have open advertisement of positions. We're going to seek local vendors when possible. We're going to think about all of the outreach that we do for specific types of vendors. On our campus, we always think about local and minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and all the things that we have learned from living through the last decades with the rest of the community. So to be honest, we're going to have open hiring processes. Because of the size of the endeavor that the leaders are imagining, we believe there's going to be enormous employment opportunities. The opportunities for the construction phase of the employment will be handled through normal construction bid processes, through a construction manager who will report to and work with Vice President Dove, and that will be handled according to whatever contract is cut through that bid. but otherwise the very broad range of employment will be open employment opportunities. And it's hard to make promises, but I would expect that if people feel that there's synergy between their own interests and what the openings are on campus, that there will be a lot of people locally represented. And I'm saying that based on our experience elsewhere. But perhaps Kathy would like to add something.
Let me just add one more thing. Okay? That's okay. We've already started conversations with potential partners to really help us focus on low-income hiring. It's a really important part of what we want to do, so there'll be training opportunities for folks that are eventually going to have jobs on this tech campus. Remember, we're talking about the operation itself. That would be 2017, so there'll be construction opportunities before that, but we're still talking about several years out before the campus here on Roosevelt Island is up and running.
Lydia, you got one more. Can you partner financially with the Roosevelt Island Public Library branch to expand our much too small branch?
I just wanted to address that to say that, as many of you know, I have had money in the city's capital budget for a number of years to expand and relocate the library to the Lilly School location. And we are at crunch time with Hudson Related, now has the RFP to redo the commercial space on Main Street. So we are, I have been meeting with the president of the New York Public Library. We have a budget in place that we anticipate will cost us to build out the library. I'm hoping to add to the capital money that's in the city budget this year, and will be and have been asking the administration to work with us on this, because opening a brand new branch I don't think should be solely the responsibility of the city council. And we're also looking at what the operating budget will be to make sure that if we do build it out in the new space, that the library will be able to obviously afford the maintenance and the staffing of the new space. So that's something that we very much are actively working on, and I will keep you posted. The budget in the city will be passed by June 30th. We'll know a lot more by then.
This comes from my neighbor, Alina Hawkins. Can you be respectful on residents' need for our roads and access to our helix and bridge by shipping/ferrying in and out construction materials and demolition debris?
We are very well aware that transportation during the construction phase, and actually just all of us as residents getting on and off the island is something that people have mentioned already a fair amount. And so in the next week and a half, we will be appointing a construction manager. This is a construction firm that is one of the first things that firm is going to do is take a serious look at construction and how we can minimize impact as we think about our campus. So I don't have an answer for you right now, but we definitely heard this as a question and a concern.
This from Sharon Berman, who's right here in the front row. From the waterfront advocate for Roosevelt Island, she is, will you consider building a dock that will allow both recreational boating from Roosevelt Island and a commuter ferry on the East River?
So, as I said to somebody earlier, again, under the transportation heading, the planes, trains, and automobiles, I know almost all of these are questions, and ferry service is something we said even in our proposal. We thought it was a marvelous idea. We're on an island, and it's intuitive. So this is, again, something we'll be talking to you all about and getting better sense of it, and adding our voice to the mix of ferry service being a good idea.
I've been informed that Marilyn Thigpen, your tennis court membership card, got dropped. If you were here, for a small amount, I could return it to you. Forgive me if I get your name wrong. Jamie Thompson. Will a percentage of housing on Roosevelt Island be reserved for Cornell staff? I think this was touched upon, but perhaps you might want to expand on that.
Yeah, this is really intended to serve the needs of the campus, and actually in the agreement with the city, we were pretty clear on that, and the city was pretty clear on that, that the whole purpose of this campus isn't to provide additional market housing. It's really to serve the faculty, staff, and students of the campus itself.
There are several variations on that theme, but I will ask a question from Sheila Rosencrantz, who also asked what about provisions for students and staff in terms of transportation.
So, again, I think we've talked about transportation a little bit. It's something we know we need to look at. I will point out that because a number of the faculty, staff, and students will be on the island, living on the campus, that should mitigate some of the potential transportation issues. But all of this goes through the next few months through the environmental impact and other review processes. So we'll be talking much more about populations and transportation as we go forward.
This question is from Judith Purdy, whom we all know is the president of the Roosevelt Island Historical Society. And she says, as president of the Roosevelt Island Historical Society, we welcome Cornell and Technion to the island. There are 3 areas that I would like to hear you reply on. 1, preserving the 4 WPA murals and artifacts at Goldwater. 2, the trees around Goldwater. And 3, working with the RIHS to preserve, protect, and enhance the story of the island.
So I didn't catch the third, but let me do the first 2 and maybe you can repeat the third. So yes, we are absolutely committed to preserving the 4 murals in the hospital. I don't know if all of you have seen them. I've seen 1. The other 3 are covered up. So we've actually had an expert in restoration, who is our museum director, come down and take a look. And now we're trying to make plans for figuring out how to get them to a restorer. And we also have not determined yet where they will go, but we'll be talking more to you about that in the future. So that was the murals. Remind me.
Right.
Oh, trees. In addition to murals, we love trees. We're from upstate New York, of course we love trees. So trees, again, is part of the campus plan, and we are going to do our best to preserve trees however we can, but a lot of that will depend on the design. On the campus landscape design, one of the things I didn't mention is one of our thoughts is when we build phase 1, there will be 2/3 of the campus pretty open, and so one of our ideas right now is to actually start a tree nursery and start growing some of the trees that can be then transplanted later for future phases. So we have lots of ideas around trees. We actually have experts in Ithaca that work on trees and have been down studying the trees on the site already. Now I really don't remember number 3.
The last part was about preserving the story of Roosevelt Island.
Preserving the story?
Well, we have an amazing history, and part of it is on that property. Well,
respecting the history?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Judy, help me.
Helping just enhance.
Thank you. Just that the Historical Society loves to preserve everything, as you know, and we would love to have space or have use or something within your campus so that people who come to the Cornell campus, Technion campus, know about the history of Roosevelt Island.
Thank you.
You know how valuable that book is, so.
Yes, thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you, that makes a lot of sense. So certainly we want to work with you to preserve the history of both the site and the island. You know, you've already done an amazing job. I've seen the book, and this is the next chapter.
I also just want to publicly thank you for sending me all the information from the simple map to the wonderful book, which we're not through yet, but I'm working my way through. And it's really been helpful. I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you.
This question is from Charmel Shaw, and she's asking about the youth and elderly of Roosevelt Island, her concerns for it, and what you might have in mind to deal with those concerns.
I touched on our thoughts around K through 12, or I should say our intentions around K through 12. But we're just as committed to working with the elderly population here. Actually, some of our partners in the foundation that was so gracious to Fund Phase 1 is very interested in both education as well as the elderly population and aging issues, and we're committed in both our academic programs as well as our community programs to working with both. So I'm not quite sure how we can be most helpful here on Roosevelt Island dealing with some of those issues, but let's start that discussion.
This question comes from the treasurer of the Roosevelt Island Resident Association, Russell Fields. It's a good one. I was recently informed that my undergraduate college was boosting their leadership of solar energy of 14.5 megawatts in 2011 and 29% of Arizona State University's power needs. What type of innovation can we expect in this area?
I'm not the engineer, I'm turning this one over. Yeah, we don't have our architect here today. Does anybody want to take this? This is beyond my...
Forgive me, it won't be the last time that you hear this answer from us. We really don't know. I'll tell you what it's the honest answer. I'll tell you what our history is of focusing on these concerns in Ithaca. We were one of the first major universities, if not the first one, to go coal-free. The year before last, the Sierra Club came out and celebrated with us. We have a new concept using a combined heat and power plant that recycles the hot air. I mean, not as much hot air as from one of my speeches, but a lot of hot air so that you can get heat and power out of the same area. And so, and the other thing on our campus in Ithaca is that, which also pertains to this campus, is the Board of Trustees, which is the governing board for all of Cornell University everywhere in the world, has mandated that every building we put up has to achieve at least LEED Silver status if the project is over $5 million. So this will be just a touch above $5 million, so it will definitely qualify for that. So we can't give you a really direct, intelligent answer on exactly those metrics, but tell you that our commitment is huge and our track record is very strong in this regard. And I think it'll await the architectural firm and the construction manager to do that. But please know, I know that you will keep our feet to the fire about this. This is very, very high on our priorities. And I've also signed something a few years ago called it's a national thing called a President's Climate Commitment. I mean, little presidents like me, not like the real president, and we're not even like President Pinsky, for that matter. But the idea there is that we've signed and promised on behalf of the campus to become carbon neutral for the whole campus. It's going to take a while to do that, but we have an enormous effort in that regard, and we've lowered our carbon footprint 25% already in Ithaca since doing that. And Ithaca's loaded with science buildings that run Provost Box 24/7, right? I mean, where grad students and postdocs are working all the time. So it's a promissory note, but we intend to work in that direction, but can't give you a really intelligent metrics right now.
The proprietor of our own Trellis restaurant, Kay Rossetti, has asked about the commercial possibilities at the site, i.e. food.
Well, food is the engine, of course, that makes the campus run, so we will definitely have food on the campus. The purpose of this campus is not a whole new retail district. The purpose of the retail on the campus is to support the academic mission, so there will clearly be the kinds of foods that students and the rest of us like to eat. Again, as we go through the design process, we'll figure out more of that, but there will be food and coffee and everything else you would expect to see on the campus.
Just to expand a little bit on the transportation questions, Joe and Barbara Holland have asked, how will this influx of people affect our transportation problem? The residents cannot get into Manhattan now at rush hour. Are you or whomever is going to add to this problem or help it get better?
Well, our goal is always to help everything get better. But again, as I said, transportation is one of the immediate things that's on our list to look at. The population numbers, as you should know, when we open the doors, is not thousands of people. It's in the hundreds of people. Not to say that that's not important, but we need to remember that this campus will be building up over time. So we both want to think about the time scale, but also the flows and how much housing, again, will be mitigating some of that traffic issue, how many many people will be coming on and off the island. So we're starting to put those estimates together.
This question comes from my colleague on RERA, Helen Shrivas. If a parking structure is built at the campus, will Cornell permit residents of Riverwalk to park there?
Parking is something we're looking at, and so one of the things you have to do when you go through an environmental review process is do something called come up with a reasonable worst case scenario. And so we're trying to estimate what parking will be necessary, but I'll tell you, our goal is to minimize parking because our goal is to minimize car traffic. And so we need to get that right, and it's tricky as you might imagine. So we need your help on that.
Lydia Tang, who has been very involved with our PTA for many years, asked another question. With the severe budget cuts to the public schools, PSIS 217 needs financial and programmatic support, as well as the restoration of enrichment programs. To what extent is your support for PSIS 217? Can you offer internships to our middle school students?
We would love to work with PS 217, and we've actually started that conversation already, and I don't see that waiting until we were on the island to do that. It's really important to us to have a strong school here, and so we're with you on that. What shape it takes, I think, is up to the school and the PTA and others to help us determine how we can be most helpful. But there seems like there's a number of different ways we can engage students and have our faculty, staff, and students work with the young students, whether it's competitions and workshops and internships on the campus. We can certainly go down the road to the school. So lots of opportunities there, and we're open to hearing about all of them.
This question comes from the founder of the Roosevelt Island Visual Arts Association, Arlene Jacoby. She says tech plus the arts would be great. Visual arts, music, dance, plus any others. Creativity. What are some of your ideas on this matter?
So I think it's early to talk about specific ideas, but as I mentioned in talking about the programmatic aspects of this campus, this is a redefinition of technology. This is technology as it meets the social sciences and humanities, technologies as it meets the arts. We're going to be transforming the way that academic institutions look at technology by partnering with the creative arts, expressive arts, having social scientists engaged in studying how people use computing. This will be a very different kind of campus.
One of my many jobs is to make sure that the senior leadership of the university gets credit for what they do. And Dr. Hartenlacher is modest. Let me tell you a little tiny bit about the unit he has still running up till the minute. The Faculty of Computing and Information Science in Ithaca, which computer science is in the top 3 or 4 or 5 in the country, was set up, remember, notice I didn't say a college of computer and information science, but a faculty, and it's organized to reach out across the campus, which has one of the top creative writing programs in the world, architecture, visual, performing arts, and they touch all the different disciplines at Cornell University, the social sciences, the humanities and arts, and obviously the physical and engineering and mathematical sciences, and the life sciences. So the record of leadership, which is the same person leading the academic aspects of the campus, is in fact to interpret the tech, not just to refer to chemistry and engineering, certainly refer to them, but also to refer to these areas. In this question, as in many other questions, if you have a minute and you don't mind doing it, to do your homework on us and look on the website of Cornell University, look up computing and information science, see the way they're touching all these different areas. And no matter what we say here today, our past behavior is going to be the best evidence of how we'll act in the future. This has been a big area of focus, which makes it, if not unique, at least unusual in the country. But would you agree, Ken, to have that broad focus?
Of course, music, theater, dance, the plastic arts, it's what we do here. This is from Sharon Pope, my colleague. Will the school complex include a garage? I think that was touched on, but would you want to?
Yeah, we're still thinking about parking and there's potential for a garage, depending on how much parking we need.
In a more nuts and bolts mode, this from Karen Hurd. How many students are you expecting for next September? Are you considering transfer students from other programs?
So for this coming fall, the programs. So just to remind you, they won't be here on Roosevelt Island. Right? We'll have leased space elsewhere in the city until 2017 when we open here on Roosevelt Island. In the leased space starting this fall, the programs will be for students who are currently students at Cornell in Ithaca. By January, we will have the first classes for students applying directly to this new campus.
This question comes from Nina Tandon, PhD. Will there be any preference for homegrown Roosevelt Island engineers and scientists?
So as a PhD, you probably know that there are very established processes for recruiting faculty to engage them in a university. We're going to follow the same kinds of processes that every university follows to attract and recruit the best faculty. If they're here in Roosevelt Island, that's a wonderful plus.
My pile of questions is getting kind of sparse, so if something occurs to you, find somebody with a handful of these and fill one out. There's the man. Find him and tackle him to the ground. Okay, a rather lengthy question from Donald Chesley. As an island, Roosevelt Island is in a prime location for oceanographic research and development. At Stevens Institute, I work with a group that deploys instrumentation and communications equipment to study and analyze, producing crucial information, for example, maritime industry, waterfront development, ferries, recreational boating, educational, K-12. Question, are you willing to help with infrastructure? For example, wide maps. Don't know what that is, but not surprising. Other facilities, collaboration, and will you have research projects utilizing the opportunity afforded by this marine environment? Help develop ferry service and simultaneously do research on, for example, wake characterization and abatement, a project of my own.
So this is a very important question, not only because of its own substance, but because it touches on a big issue, and that is we have a university that's got an enormous reach from agriculture and forestry, veterinary medicine, human medicine, and everything in between. And so the question is, to what extent can we support those kind of activities on this campus? Once again, in the interest of being very open and honest, the first thing we're going to do is focus very sharply on the contract that we made with New York City to develop a talent pool in the tech sector. As there are tech-oriented questions related to this field of endeavor or others, I'm sure Dr. Hunwater and Vice President Dove will look into them. To the extent that there's not a connection between the tech sector and other science areas, it's unlikely that we're going to put a focus on them, at least for the foreseeable future. So you need to help us as you're thinking about these because of the huge talent pool on Roosevelt Island to help us understand those areas in which there's an intersection between a very worthwhile field of endeavor and a tight tech focus that the city has asked us to continue.
We had a set time and we're reaching that, and I feel that Cornell will be here to answer questions for people who would like to come up and talk to them one-to-one. I just want to thank everybody for coming. It's an extraordinary opportunity for our community and for our great city. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Cornell. We really appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the end of questions, it's just the beginning.